Hi, I'm Becca Otis from Five Lines Pottery in Indianapolis, Indiana.
And I'm Ryan Durbin from RD Ceramics, located in Southgate, Kentucky.
And welcome to Wheel Talk.
Hey guys, we've loved answering all of your questions so far. If you'd like to hear your question on the podcast, please send them to us on Instagram at Wheel Talk Podcast or by email to wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.
Hi guys. So me and Ryan were lucky enough to go to ClayCon West this year, and what you're about to hear is our group, or I don't know, our podcast discussion that we presented with, and we were lucky enough to do this together. So we hope you enjoy it. There is some questions from the audience, so hopefully you can hear that. Our mic was a little off. It's not off, but it's recorded with us doing it live with mics already, so that's why it sounds a little strange probably. All right, thanks.
We're live.
No. Hello. We are,
Welcome.
Yeah, welcome. We are, I'm Becca Otis, and this is Ryan Durbin. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. Yeah.
Becca talked yesterday. How many of you saw Becca's talk yesterday?
Sweet, 2.
2.
Got 3. We got 3.
All right.
I'm sorry.
You saw it too.
Yeah, Kim saw it too. And we host a podcast called Wheel Talk Podcast. And we are just going to do kind of like a normal episode, but we also want to encourage questions. If you have questions, you're late again.
We gave up on you introducing us, so
Dang it.
that's all right.
I'm sorry.
Actually, they just said, I think Joe gave up on us.
We
Yeah.
did. It's
Actually,
recorded.
Today is supposed to be, Emily's supposed to be doing the introductions today, so.
Emily, are you working today?
No, thank God, I'm just with you guys. Yay!
Yay!
So, nope.
Cool.
Becca and Ryan, they're awesome. Ryan, tell them your name of your podcast.
Yes.
We love you guys, thank
We'll
you.
just be out here
Thank
if
you.
you need us.
We are missing a third host.
Yeah, does anybody know who our third host is that couldn't make it?
No? Oh, so we have this train that rolls by my apartment every day about 15 times during the podcast,
Yeah.
and we've named him Charles.
So if you hear the train in the background, we just kind of give a little toot to Charles when he
Yeah.
makes an appearance. So
Sometimes he gets a little aggressive,
yeah,
but,
it's called Wheel Talk.
Wheel
It's like
talk,
real talk, but wheel talk.
Yeah.
Because we both like wheel throwing. So
Can you give us a little bit of the history about like how you guys met, how you got started this?
Yeah.
yeah. So you want to talk about each of us individually, and then we'll go
Yeah.
to that.
Do you want to start?
Yeah. So I'm Ryan Durbin. I do pottery on the side. I'm a full-time website developer. So I do a 9 to 5 from home. I have been working in that field since college. I actually went to school at Northern Kentucky University near Cincinnati. I'm near Cincinnati. I don't know if we said that, but near Cincinnati, Ohio, in Northern Kentucky. And I do 9 to 5 website development. Went to school for that. I did a minor in ceramics at that school, and then I've been doing kind of ceramics on the side since then. And I've been selling since 2016. Started making in like 2007. So I kind of doing this side hustling sort of thing for that period of time, and slowly kind of working my way up and figuring things out from Becca, and going through challenges and successes together, I think, is kind of how this is going for us. And then hoping to do this one day full time. So that's kind of my story.
And he is like really famous on Instagram. He's got like 30,000 followers on Instagram. But what's really cool about Ryan is that we both make what we call basic bitch pots. So, they're just like basic, they're pottery,
Like
and
production pots. We like the craft of it in the form.
Yeah, and it's hard to grow a following if you're making just basic pottery on Instagram or any social media. And what Ryan's really good about is like communicating with people and talking and commenting on every every picture that he posts, if somebody comments, he comments back, and he's really good at communication. And and I think that that's what's the coolest thing about your following on Instagram is that his following, his growth has not been because he like made a really cool pot and it just exploded. It's been a very intentional journey through the past couple of years, making goals and posting daily and being consistent. And so it's rare that you find somebody that is like intentional about their growth on social media. So that's what's cool.
Slow and steady and
Steady.
consistent. Like dedicating to something and saying, I'm going to consistently do this. I'm not going to like, drop off of doing that for a few weeks because I'm like overwhelmed and, try to make it work for me and see what.
Did you find that with that intention that your sales also increased?
Yeah, I think you got to start with just trying to be open to your process and answering questions and realize that they're not asking you to try to get information from you about like secrets or whatever, but you're trying to help the community over time and just little by little, and then the sales kind of come after.
Yeah.
I don't try to be too salesy and markety. I mean, I think I do come across that way sometimes because I post so much and so often.
But people will ask you, well, where can I buy your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, that's the easiest thing is you post and they see your stuff and they're like, hey, where can I buy that? Or, I really like that color. Do you have any available? And I'm happy to be like pointing them to something like, hey, go to my website. There's something there. Or, no, tell me which one you specifically like. And I kind of make it a one-on-one connection with them through like messages. And, I think they get that like customer service of, they seem like they're overwhelmed and they have too many people reaching out. But if you get that one-on-one with somebody, then you can, feel more, appreciated of, oh, they actually like went the extra mile and like took photos in their studio. They grabbed a mug and they showed me like 2 or 3 mugs and, while they're doing whatever they're doing that day. So.
Yeah, and he's I'm just here to like pump him up, and he gets sponsored by a bunch of people, like Diamond Core and Speedball and a few other people. But specifically, what I was gonna say is that like he's like both of us are very open. If something is wrong and if something isn't like the way it should be, we don't hide it. So like one time Speedball, you've been having issues.
If I had some issues with the underglazes, I'll be like, I'm getting these issues, and I'm also like sharing it in stories a little bit of like, hey, I'm coming across these things that are happening, because you get other people that experience similar things, and then you get messages of like, oh, this is what I did to kind of figure it out. This might be your issue, and then you'll get people that have been in the business for a while, and they're like, oh, I was using these underglazes, and this is what I found that worked, and then, I can also talk about like, I really love their bats because of the way that I use the Speedball bats.
I hate them.
But yeah, it's like, hey, Sharon, this is what I like about this thing, and then if I don't like a certain thing, or if I'm working through something, I'll share that, and then people can kind of share that experience with you and get some back and forth about how you solve the problem too. Yeah. Not saying like, oh, I'm not going to post that because it works against that company,
Yeah. So, I have been in pottery we've actually started about the same time. No, he's actually been in pottery longer than I have. I found it in college because I lied to a professor and told her that I knew how to do it, which I didn't. And I needed an independent study because I needed 2 credits to fill my 20 credits for the course.
Yeah.
And then started doing the independent study and kind of just learned on my own. I learned on a Soldner kick wheel, and at 9 o'clock at night with one of the ladies that used to come into the studio that didn't go to college, and she had a master's, and she would be like, this is how you center. And so that's kind of how I learned, and I realized very quickly that I was made to do pottery. So it's not like I'm not in love with it. Let's get that out of the gate. I'm not in love with it. It's not my passion, but I was made to do it. So I look at pottery as very much as my job, and I always have. I've owned my own business since 2014, and I started off Yes. No.
The year?
2013. I don't know.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Started off right next to my bed, throwing on like a old Soldner electric wheel with a wooden foot pedal, and
Is that the one you still have?
yeah, and I still have it. I'm gonna cry if it ever dies. And I, right off the bat, I got a gig with Starbucks, and they asked me to make about 300 pieces for them, and I was like, oh shit, like maybe I'm okay at this. And so that kind of like started, it kind of pushed me into having to do this. And then I went full time in, what? No. Did I? Yeah. I went full time in 2014 after like a problem with my regular job. It was a 3-year plan that turned into a 1-year plan. And I just kind of like started doing it, and I started doing shows, and I started selling mostly to the community that I had. And then in 2017, I opened up a brick and mortar in my small town. It's not tiny, 20,000 people in Monroe, Washington. And that started out as classes in production, my own production, and then morphed into classes production and paint your own pottery. And so I have experience in brick and mortars and then also in production. And now I don't own my own business, really. I mean, I do, but I work for Rebecca Graves at Graves Co. Pottery in Indianapolis. I sold everything. I was like, I hate my life during the middle of COVID, not because I wasn't making money, but because I was working so hard that I was burning myself out. And I was like, I hate this. So I sold everything in the studio, all the kilns, all the equipment, moved to Indianapolis, and I work 4 to 6 hours a day, making 120 pots a day for 4 days a week, and it's great. And I do my stuff on the side, and and that's where I am right now.
Yeah, and we met about, when did we meet? Like 5 years ago, maybe?
We met in 2014.
Met digitally.
Digitally in 2014, because I would do live videos, and in my basement throwing pinch pots.
Uh-huh.
What I call pinch pots. Pinch of this, a pinch of that.
Yeah.
And
I would always attend them and
like type.
It's kind of weird. Like if you've ever been on the Instagram lives and it's a small group, it's like kind of awkward because for the person throwing, it's kind of weird because they're in their own zone, and then you kind of want feedback because that's why you're posting it.
Yeah.
So I would always comment and ask questions and make it conversational, kind of like I guess the interviews today where I generally know a question to ask that'll spark conversation and get you going a little bit and see what we can tease out a little bit. So that's kind of how we met. I would join those, and then I would do some videos and she would join those, and I guess we just talked through DMs a lot on Instagram.
Lots of DMs. We traded pots.
Yep.
I remember you were like, do you want to trade pots? Because that was one of your goals for that year, to trade pots with other people.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 people.
And then once Instagram started being able to do lives together, we would start doing lives together. Like I lived in Washington and he was in Kentucky, so it worked out that when I was working during the day, he was working in his studio during the night.
Yeah, because I'm like a 6 p.m. to midnight kind of guy in the studio, and she's on Pacific time in Washington, so it worked well.
Yeah.
And then we would talk through whatever's going on the dual casts on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we talked about exactly. I think we just kind of shoot the shit a little bit.
Yeah, and a lot of the times I was having problems with my productivity, and he would know it, and he'd be like, "You want to do a live?" Because that would make me not get distracted.
Right.
And and so, by the way, he's married. We're not together. We're just really good friends. But so, and then I think at one point we were like, we should just do a podcast because we're doing this live. We're already this should be recorded. People are enjoying what we're talking about and they're learning. And
I think the pottery throwing on them was just a distraction of something to grab your eyes. But I think the back and forth and the discussion was kind of perfect for audio. So we were like, let's try this podcast thing. Yeah. I think we'd already followed, I listened to Potter's Cast, and there was there's been a boom of other podcasts that have come out since then in the clay space. But
Yeah.
we were just like, it's more about like getting us together and talking about topics that we care about.
Yeah. We look at it as once a week we get to hang out for a couple hours and talk and catch up on life, and we talk about the things that we would normally talk about anyway. So
It's just
You
like
said that
schedule.
the pottery isn't your passion. What's your passion? Is it another art form?
I like furniture. I like mid-century modern furniture. I cried when I went to the Herman Miller plant in Zeeland, Michigan. I was like planning on moving to Zeeland, Michigan, just because of that. I was going to be a janitor and work my way up. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it started. We're 129 episodes in. We've released one a week every Saturday, 6 a.m. Eastern time, every week since
Yep.
it started. So that's one like high level goal that we have is like, hey, we're gonna talk. We don't talk every single week, but
Yeah.
we're gonna release an episode every single Saturday. We're gonna commit to that, which is a commitment to each other, and as well as like people are gonna expect it. So, if we get delayed, or I think Lindy in the UK has been like, hey, this episode didn't come out today. What's going on?
Yeah, she's
So,
ahead of us, so she'll
she's-
be like, hello.
Yeah, she's like 5 hours ahead of us, so she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I set it for Sunday at 6 a.m., not Saturday at 6
Yeah.
a.m. Whoops, thanks. All right, it's live at 10.
Yeah. The community that we've grown with this has been really great as well. And last night we were listening to the keynote speaker last night, and he was like, this is kind of like us, but we're on a really small scale. We've been friends and we do things together. Like we do shows. Well, now that I'm local, we can do shows together.
Right.
And we just, everything that we have and do, we kind of like discuss if we're having issues,
Yeah.
within pottery. And we have friends that listen to the podcast or don't, but we
We have some people that we can go to that
Yeah,
are good
we're-
resources if we're having kiln issues or if we're having glaze issues or firing issues or whatever. And then Becca gets on me about my kiln and all that stuff all the time. And
But you finally got a new one, so.
No, it's not new.
Oh, it's not? Oh,
It's
no,
used.
that's right, it was used.
It's used.
it's
It's
used.
Just get the one that's out there, dude.
yeah, it's
Am I
used.
gonna get that back?
But she's driving back. She's driving.
Yeah, no.
No. We'll get it in Sika in 2023.
Yeah.
So yeah, like from the firm, I was getting a lot of like having just people that you could bounce ideas off of and just build a community, whether it's they're local to you or not, or just kind of organically grow it and just have somebody that you can lean on to ask questions and bounce ideas off of is great.
Yeah, and like the guests that we've had on the podcast have been extremely helpful and educational. We make sure that we have. This is totally not what we said we were going to talk about, but
That's good.
It's fine. This also happens a lot, but it's great. We made it very intentional that if we have a guest on the podcast, we have a guest on the podcast for a specific reason. So if we're going to have somebody who is a hand builder, we're going to talk to them about hand building. We're not going to just talk to them about their life and how they got to how to get to ceramics or anything like that, because everybody has the same story about how they started ceramics. They don't, but really it's very similar. And so that is something we're very intentional about. Like we had Link on the podcast. What episode was it? Damn
Testing my
it.
episode.
We had Link from Kentucky Mud Works on the podcast, and she talked about glaze chemistry, clay chemistry, supply and demand in the clay world, and how that affects
95.
how that affects what you're buying and the recipes of your clays and your glazes. And so we want to get into like the nitty gritty and glean on people that know more than us.
Yeah, ask questions that we think other audience members may be interested in or may just like want to ask, but it's so specific that you can't get that through like an email, or if you sent an email to Kentucky Mud Works about a specific thing, like could you get the ear and like an actual long answer to the question you're asking and understand like why that answer is true, or and then when we interview other people, it's like you mentioned hand building, like Amy, not Amy, Pines and Pottery. Yeah, Amy.
Yeah, it is Amy.
Amy from Pines and Pottery. Like, she talks about, she has a lot of, we ask her about like the hand issues, because she's had like carpal tunnel issues, and how do you keep, your body good for the long term. She's been doing it for a while, and the final product is amazing, but it's like,
but at what
when
cost?
you look at it, what cost is that, and how do you make it work for your business? Because there's demand for your stuff, but how do you not kill yourself to meet the demand of what people are willing to buy and stuff. So
yeah, and we talk about, like, with that, we talk about real issues within our community, like burnout and your body issues, like how you're treating yourself. Like, we had an episode about, like, what I use to help with because I have fibromyalgia and I'm like sore all the time, what I'm using to like help that. And like, he's healthy, but but yeah, like, it's really important. Like I burned out really hardcore in 2020, like so much so that when I moved to Indianapolis, I didn't do clay for probably 6 months. And it's really important to treat your body and treat your mind correctly in this industry, and to not, to know your limits and know if you're doing this for the right reason. Like when I left Washington, it was because I was chasing money. I was just like, and it wasn't even a lot of money. I wasn't even chasing a lot of money. Like, that would have been nice, It was like enough money to pay myself to get food, and but it was every month. It's like, oh, do I have enough money for this month? Am I gonna make it? And it was like, I didn't like what I was doing. I don't like little children running around my space all the time. Like, that's not something that I ever wanted, And when you start a business in pottery, in any craft industry, it's fucking hard. It's like, this is a hard business, and you start saying yes to things. You may start saying yes to things that are out of your scope and are out of the things that you actually enjoy to do. And at some point, that is okay, but when it gets to a point where you aren't even enjoying what you're doing anymore, it's not worth it, and
have a central point of like why you did it or what you enjoy about it, rather than like you're getting further and further off the path away from. Not like you don't have to have like a super long-term, like a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan and all that stuff. But at
least a yearly goal.
At least like, yeah, what do I enjoy doing? What do I want to focus on in this period of time? Like, what's important to me? And then what do you prioritize? You say no to certain things and you say yes to other things, and you know, do a little research with somebody that's a client or wanting to be a client of, can I get this commission made? And then you're like, let me think about it. Let me get the details that influence my decision of, is it going to be cost effective to do it? Can I make some samples and understand what's within my scope, what's out of my scope? What are the unknowns that are going to be here? Am I confident in like giving them a price? Are they going to be happy about it? You have a lot of back and forth with people, and if you don't want to do all that, you can also say no and volunteer up someone else that maybe they can reach out to that have that skill set, and they may already do that thing. Like, it might not be worth your time or your money, or maybe it's a good challenge for you and you do want to take that on and you have the time to do it.
I recommend, if you find a friend in pottery, find one like him. He's like got so many like boundaries that are so set. He's like, nah, I'm not doing that. Yeah, like, he's very analytical.
I feel like you're more boundary though.
Well,
like, you're more like, I'm not doing that.
I only have boundaries because I've learned from my mistakes. And I right now, if somebody asks me to do something, like someone asked me to make a bowl because they broke it. Okay, so they broke a bowl of a like 16-piece set that I made for them. They're a family of 4. And so this is for like family dinners. And I know this, and she asked me for 16, like one bowl that she broke, and I was like, nah, sorry, I can't.
And you probably made it like 4 years ago or something.
Yeah, I made it like 4 years ago, and I was like, I can't, I'm sorry. I'll try and find somebody that can make it for you, but I can't do that. I don't want to. I didn't tell her that, but it's like, I don't want to, and that's like shipping one bowl, and I have to figure out the dimensions and the sizes and everything. But yeah, like having those boundaries is really important, and having this, what we have, is really good for talking that out, And I also feel like we haven't really talked about this, or maybe we did, I can't remember, but I also feel like a lot of the people that listen to the podcast are listening while they're working in their studios, and so we're clearly not formal. And what we provide is just like this weird pseudo internet friendship to a bunch of people in their studios while they're working. And we have so many people that are like, I'm yelling at you while you're talking and while I'm working and not realizing that you're not in the room, And so I think that's probably the most rewarding thing for me out of this is that, not the yelling part, but that fact that people consider us friends, even though they've never met us. And we have so many Lindy and Aletha and oh my gosh, so many people.
And they ask questions. We've answered 150 questions that people have asked.
Yeah.
We always answer at least a couple questions every episode, and then we have Q&A episodes when they pile up, and we answer 30. And
it stretches us.
Yeah,
too.
and it's process questions, it's business questions, it's I don't know, it's about us,
Life
they want to know
questions?
about us.
Yeah.
Nico asked to see the chair that we always talk about that I have at the house that has been on discussion a little bit.
It's an ugly chair.
So it's
it's great. I love that chair.
I think having, and the episodes are not edited. We literally start it, end it, release it, put the pre-thing, put the end thing, and it's out there. So it's everything. We're not cutting things out. I think we want to be as authentic as possible.
We will cut things out if I say something offensive.
How many times have you done
that?
But
that's only happened twice. What?
Yeah. So you're not in it much then?
Yeah, no, it's mostly Ryan. I always tell people that I'm the Jar Jar Binks to his Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he's never seen Star Wars, so.
All right, give me a thumbs down. That's all right. I was thinking about this today. I was relating this to sports. I was I think she's the color commentator and I'm the play-by-play. I'm guiding the questions and stuff, and I'm on the tracks, and then she's the color commentator to come in and add all the fluff and the interesting parts, the sound snippets. Yeah. So that's how I relate. I'm more sports related. So I don't know the Jar Jar Binks thing, but
Nico.
Well, what I was gonna say is for me, I know for 2020 with everything going on, it was nice to have you guys in the background, even though I wasn't getting to do play, just listening to you guys. But it's also, you guys talk about things that a lot of people kind of consider hush-hush. You guys talk about your business. You talk about money. You talk about what you're making, and you're very open, and that's something I think that a lot of us forget. We share other things, but we won't share that. And you guys are just blatant open about it. And I think it makes us more open to be understanding that it's okay to discuss money.
Yeah, Ryan made $80,000 last year, and almost all of it was profit. How freaking amazing is that? Really? As a side business, doing pottery, that's how much he made. Holy freaking crap! Some people that do it full time can't even make that much money, and I'm always I'm so proud of you. but yeah, and it's just, we do talk about money, and we do not skip over any details.
When we start the podcast out, we're always what's going on with you? How's your day going? And it's not a good, moving on. It's a 15. We usually have to cap it at 15 minutes. Okay, we share about what's going on today, what's going on this week, what happened. I sold at a show this weekend. How did it go? What was it? I sold $1,500 at this show, whatever. And then we'll do the same with Becca, and she'll share how her day's going and
I
week's
sold
going.
only
And it's
$400 at a show.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a whole episode about a show that she went to that was the show was horrible.
I love that you were I was sitting on the floor, defeated.
I wasn't defeated, but I was sitting on the floor because I was very tired. And, but we have a saying, don't be like Becca, because there's so many things that I've done incorrectly, and. I think
that's the title of an episode. Don't be like Becca.
It's
show
that
edition.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. And So yeah, we want to keep it as authentic and as real as possible. And you're right, nobody really, especially in craft communities, really don't talk about money anymore. And even when you go to a show, it's all about, it's like, sometimes it depends. It's mostly about competition and about like, oh, you made this much. It's not like, oh my God, you made that much? That's great.
Yeah.
You know, it should be that way. And there is enough people in this world to buy pots. Like, there's plenty. You know, you could be right next to another potter that does something completely different, and you guys aren't competing. You know, and we just want to make sure that that's very apparent in the way that we speak. Did you have a question?
I did. I was wondering, I know your episodes are different lengths.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever plan, like, how long, or they just go into that?
We kind of like try to cap it at 2 hours.
Yeah.
I would say the average is probably about an hour and a half.
It depends on how tired we are.
Yeah, but there's also some short ones in there that are 35 minutes or something.
Yeah, we record our episodes at 9 p.m. And we both work full time. He has more energy than I do. I yawn a lot.
And I drink water a lot.
And he drinks water a lot. And so we try to cap it at 2, but sometimes I'm just like, we got to be done, you know.
And you'll hear that in there. We'll be like, Becca will usually throw out, do we have anything else? And then we'll talk for another 15 minutes because I have like a next question, which happens in conversation around anyway. So I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this. Can we, what do you think about this? And then we'll talk for 15 more minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally we'll get together and we'll say like, what do we want to talk about today? Or, this came to mind this week and, this could be good to talk about. I think we could talk for 40 minutes about this or whatnot and we'll discuss it. Or it could be, had a show this weekend, this is what I experienced and this is something that I got out of it that I think would be useful for people to hear about. And when we're sharing about the sales and the business side, like we're super analytical anyways. Mm-hmm. And I like bouncing ideas about like, money that we made and setting goals for the year and
he's
I'm
very money oriented,
very numbers oriented. And you said in one episode you were like you're like the most numbers oriented, but you're like the cheapest son of a bitch out there.
It's
like,
true.
Like you're so driven by money, but it's like
the money has
you're not
no
gonna spend
effect
it, so
on
like,
his life. He's like, I just want to make this much money.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend it, but I want to make it. And so I'm always like pushing him to be like, maybe you should buy a kiln. Like maybe you should like put an expense in your portfolio. Like, buy a van. And I think that's because I do have a background in business. We both have backgrounds in business, but because I have a background more in like full-time business, I'm fully aware. Like he got hit with a pretty big tax dump last year that he wasn't expecting. And I was like, well, yeah, because you didn't spend enough money.
Yeah.
And
what are you doing to fix it this year? That's what I'm
yeah,
wondering.
he's going to buy a van.
Remedy it since you won't buy
So I have to do like the estimated payments because I made income. So they're like, you pay the state. I actually paid it yesterday sitting in the room over there. Pay like $600 to Kentucky for the estimated income tax for the quarter. And then I paid to the Fed yesterday. And it was like,
How much did you pay?
I was thinking about that. So the estimated payments, I think, were like $2,700 for the quarters, but that was based on if you sell the exact same amount. So I was like, okay, looking at months over months, I was seeing that I was doing better each month. And then I was like, okay, well, this estimate's not going to be high enough. So I'm just going to pay a little bit more. So like the second quarter, I paid like $3,500 instead of $2,700, whatever. And then the one I just paid yesterday was like, I'm just going to pay like $6,000 because I know like, or $4,000 or something.
Holy
I don't know.
crap.
I was like, let's just get ahead of it. I know I'm going to owe money, so it's like, I made a bunch of profit, so it's like,
my mom always said, she said, don't let the government mess up. You need to mess up. So you got to pay less so that, like, if you paid less, then you can pay a little bit more. But if they take all your money, they're like, oh, we got all your money.
Well, it was a bigger hit. Last year, I ended up having to owe like $5,000 or $6,000. It was a bigger hit. I was like, ugh.
So you paid for the whole year?
No,
you
yesterday
just paid for the quarter?
It wasn't estimated. I think I paid $4,000 yesterday.
For the quarter?
For the quarter, yeah.
Okay.
And worst case scenario, he'll get money back if you overpay.
I won't get money
If
back.
he gets money back.
I'll still owe money, but
Yeah. And that's why owning a small business sucks. Really? It's so frustrating. It's like, hey, here's all my money. Like, oh yeah.
So do you generate income from the podcast? And then do you
Oh.
have parameters that you say, like you spend the hour doing the podcast and you post it, you don't edit it, but what about the time like answering questions?
Yeah.
Right.
It's
oh,
all,
that's a good question.
I would say it's all like generally volunteer because we enjoy our time together and kind of mix up the duties. And it just becomes I'm going to dedicate this amount of time. In the last year, we set up a Patreon for the podcast, which is, do you all know what Patreon is? It's basically just like a platform that you can donate money on a monthly basis to whoever is starting it. So a lot of potters out there have Patreons and they have extra things
like classes
that they
and-
give to the people
Yeah.
that support them every month. And we kind of did it where you donate money. It could be $3, $5, $10, or $25 or something. And we named each of the tiers based on what you're giving, just different wheels.
Yeah, the $3 is the Shimpo Aspire.
Yeah, so that's the Aspire tier. And then
The $5 is
The Whisper, I
The
think.
Whisper, the Shimpo Whisper. The $10 is the Brent.
CXC. I
CXC.
think.
So 25 is Soulner.
Yeah, hell yeah. And the $25 one is the Soldner.
I don't think we have the $25 ones, but we just gotta name it, for fun, and then
Yeah, and he was like, we need to do stuff, like we need to put stuff on there, and I was like, no. I was
so
like,
we're trying not to burn each other out, as well as like we don't want to grow to hate this. That it's
Yeah.
like, you could do the podcast and you could put it on YouTube and you could do all these Instagram posts building up about it and advertising for it. But
Yeah.
it's like this is one thing that I do of like 10 things on a weekly basis, or
Right.
X number of things. So. And
Oh, yeah,
then, Becca has her own stuff, so we try to keep it
Yeah.
pretty low effort to where we still enjoy it.
and
we're
I'm
building-
not as technologically savvy as him, so a lot of the technical stuff goes to him, and I want to make sure that I'm not putting more of the load on him. Like we try to keep it as even as possible, because, but a lot of the times I'm like, I need to make sure that you're like still okay, like you're not burned out and you're not like, this is too much for you. And so, but we also, we want to make sure that we don't hate this. And for us to do like extra classes and to do us like have somebody sponsor us, so we have to do like an ad every week to like figure out what to say for an ad.
Make sure they like it, communicate
Yeah.
with them about payment and the
Payment,
scheduling, and yeah.
And like I think that we thought that was a great idea, and then like the more we thought about it, we were like, ooh, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
And that's not what we're doing this for. We're fine making the $70 a month off of Patreon, and we basically were like, you know what? We give value to these people already for free, and if they want to donate to our Patreon, then they can.
Yeah.
And they know fully and not expecting anything on that Patreon, really. And it's just like, hey, if you want to throw us a couple dollars to like help us pay for our website, that's great.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I think we've been capturing the video of our Skype calls
Yeah.
since like episode 70 something. And then we share the YouTube stuff to the Patreon.
Yeah.
So if you want to watch the video versions, that's kind of the current benefit that you
Yeah.
get being on there that nobody else gets. But we're trying to figure out goals for the year
Yeah,
and
like-
see what we can throw some extra things in there to give more focused attention to people that have more specific questions or need a specific demo, because everything is audio at this point. There are some videos that we do through like Instagram, but it's not.
Yeah, and
a
that was
super
another
high
reason why we never did audio or video, because when we first discussed doing this podcast, we wanted to make it as fun as possible, and I was like, video sounds dreadful. Like, because we were talking about like editing stuff, and I was like, that just sounds horrible. I don't want to do that, because I'm the editor. And so we were just like, you know what, audio's fine. It's fine.
As long as it's consistent and we're giving good content of what we're talking about. And
Yeah. Does anybody have any more questions? Oh, yes.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, so in your podcast, have you done things to, I think think a lot of artists don't understand the shift to Instagram for marketing purposes.
Yeah.
Do you guys talk about that?
We have
Yes.
a couple episodes about that.
Because
Yeah.
I think instead, people working smarter, not harder. kind of
Indeed. Yeah, Ryan's my episode man.
Yeah, we have
Like 5 episodes.
so Instagram's obviously probably the biggest platform for potters, I would say.
Yeah.
And episode 74, I am on there solo and I answer a bunch of Instagram questions. 75 is social media boundaries, which is about I think it's about learning what you want to share, what you don't want to share. If people, a lot of people ask for glazes and stuff like that. So figuring out what kind of, I would say persona, but what you want to share and what you don't. And then we talk more about Instagram questions on 77. And yeah, I would just say look at the titles and see but there's a number of them that are social media related.
Even the people you've interviewed, they've kind of covered how, Pine Pottery.
Pine's in, yeah.
And Elon, how they've grown through the social media platform. So it's not just you guys talking about it directly, but you've interviewed other artists.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Kurt Hammerly and Pitch Pine Pottery,
Tara and Matt.
they are two good ones to listen to about their growth.
Yeah, I think Kurt is episode 50 and Pitch Pine I think is 32.
Yeah.
Or Pitch Pine is 52 and Kurt is 50. Mixing them up.
What about Iron?
Huh?
What was the last name?
Kurt Hammerly and Pitch Pine Pottery.
And then Iron something?
No, there was no iron.
Pitch Pine Pottery?
Oh, Tara.
Tara and
Or
Matt.
Tara and Matt.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
they are Pitch Pine Pottery.
Oh,
They're married. So,
yeah.
we should talk about what we were going to talk about. We have time.
Yeah.
It's only 10:45.
All right, we talk about that.
I have just a quick question.
Oh yeah.
Sure.
How do you guys go about deciding on pricing your pottery?
Oh, good. Yes. Yay. Okay, so I will tell you first. We have an episode really early on that if you want to get into the nitty gritty of it, it's very technical. So bring a notepad. But and we did a whole spreadsheet on how to kind of calculate your cost of material versus your time.
Episode 9. How much
Episode
does a
9.
mug cost to produce? So
Yes.
it's going into the materials also.
Yeah,
all
and so
stuff.
that's a very technical approach. But for before we even did that, I think that we started pricing our pottery, and what I do is, okay, so a lot of us sell wholesale, right? A lot of us don't, but regardless of not selling wholesale or you are, I think that you need to look at your approach to wholesale, because eventually you may wholesale unless you're doing something really fancy, like super intricate work that you could never wholesale. So when I look at pricing my pottery, I want to look at my wholesale cost first. So I'm like, okay, what's the lowest cost that I'm willing to sell this piece for? So, for instance, I have shitty cups and fancy cups. Okay, so the shitty cups is just basic bitch, they're just wine cups. And those I don't plan, the cost that I set for that is $15. Okay, they're cheap, and I know that's way below, right? But I'm never gonna wholesale those for $7. I will wholesale them for $15 because I don't care what they sell them for. They can sell them for whatever they want. I'm gonna sell them for $15. And so, but if I was gonna sell a mug, if I was gonna make a regular mug, I would probably say, okay, the lowest that I want to sell this for, the lowest that I'm feeling comfortable about making money on this is $20. Okay, so that's what my wholesale price is, and then I would make my retail price based on that wholesale price.
And there's a formula for that, right?
There's pretty much a formula, but you could do just double, because that's the standard right now, unfortunately. But you could be $40, and then your wholesale price is $20, and so that's how I kind of approach it going. And when I started doing pottery, it was definitely the other way around. Finding your retail price first and then being like, oh shit, I have to sell that for $10. You know, it's a wholesale. So that's why I kind of approach it at a wholesale price first. So think about that, even if you're not doing it, because eventually somebody's going to ask you, hey, can I buy 20 of these? Or can I do this? And you're going to be like, yeah. But if you have your prices set up so that it's more comfortable, then
That helps.
we'll get to it. I'm going to let him answer
And
how he does it.
the other pricing episode is titled Pricing. That's $79. That one's a newer one, and that's probably more specific to how do you price your work, how do you approach it.
Oh, and the Rebecca Graves episode, Rebecca
35.
Prouse
35
is
Rebecca
35.
Graves,
She
yeah.
talks about her wholesale pricing as well. And she's my boss, and she's phenomenal.
Badass. For pricing for me, I do this on the side, so it's really about supply and demand. I always started with wanting to go to shows and selling in person, and the online and the consignment and wholesale kind of came afterwards. And I'll talk about more about all the different ways I sell at 1 o'clock at my talk, but I definitely price it based on supply and demand. So I started at a certain price point. Like, I think my mugs might have started about maybe $20 or $24 or something
Yeah.
like that. So I started at that point. I sold, got some stuff out the door, saw what people liked, saw what people didn't like, what's left and what's dusty, what I pack up every single show that doesn't move. And then hopefully I tend to keep those prices for a period of time until hopefully they sell. And then usually at year end, I'll be like analyzing at the end of the year, how much inventory did I have left? Did I feel overwhelmed? Was I keeping up? Did I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I've only got like 10 of these left. I need to make some. And I plan ahead pretty well. So, with doing this on the side, I can't dedicate, okay, I'm going to just work in the studio for 2 days straight and make a bunch of this form to restock. I don't have that luxury because of the timing. So I tend to, if I'm getting overwhelmed, then I'll up the price a little bit. I usually only up it at the beginning of the year, so I'll probably bump the mugs up $2 the next year. At this point, my like regular 12-ounce, 14-ounce mug is $32, and the quality is getting better year over year as well because I've just made hundreds of them, and then you get an eye of what glazes people like, what glazes people don't like. So I want to make something that has a good chance of selling. So I'll tailor the glaze combos that I offer based on what people are willing to buy and keep moving out the door.
Yeah.
And then I have different lines of work as well that allows me to price mugs at $26 all the way up to $60.
Yeah. And yeah.
So what is selling?
Good question.
Yeah, so we actually have one on here about that, so that's good. So I mentioned shows. Last year I did 20 shows, and for those, I was looking at my sales for last year of the items that sold the best. Mugs, I sold 347 mugs last year, which was about 10K in mugs. Spoon rests. I think everybody can make spoon rests.
His
Everybody
spoon
buys
rests are
spoon
so
rests.
fucking simple.
I
and
put
they
videos
sell
on
like
Instagram of
hotcakes.
throwing them. I can throw them in like a minute or 45 seconds, and they're so simple.
It's ridiculous, and he puts them in like a little like basket, and people just like rifle through them, and he's just like throwing them like frisbees to people. It's just like
So last year at shows, I sold 456 of them. That was about. I saw $15 last year.
Yeah.
I was selling them at
A
$12.
$15
I started
spoon
selling
rest.
them at $12, and then I bumped them up to $15 because I was getting overwhelmed and I couldn't make it enough of them. I usually see at the end of the year because the Christmas time, like people are buying the most, and then I'm like, oh, I'm depleted. Like I need more because I like to stack up Bisqueware, and then I just pull from the Bisqueware and like, okay, I did a show. I sold 15 spoon rests or 40 spoon rests or whatever, and I'm like, I need to get the backlog filled of finished stuff. So that was about $6,500 worth of spoon rests, which is crazy. And then the other one that's really profitable at shows that I sell are the oil bottles. I actually have a few out there if you want to see what they look like. Those are like olive oil soap dishes.
Oh, yeah, I saw them.
Soap dispensers. So it's like people have tons of mugs and they also cook or they have a kitchen and they want something to accent their kitchen, or they buy it for somebody that's got a new house or they're getting married or something and they want something unique. So I sold 188 of those last year. That was a little over $6,000 worth of oil bottles. Those are probably the most profitable besides the mugs.
You do have to buy the little dispenser thingy, and you have to make sure your like little
Opening
top
fits. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you about that. If you just figure out with your clay, the shrinkage, and then now you just know what your opening should be, or do you take a gamble sometimes? and fit
Yeah,
it
when
or
I first started, I was gambling,
Okay.
and you get the pieces out of the kiln, and you put the thing in there, and it pops out, or it doesn't fit,
Yeah,
and you're
just
like,
like
and then you stack up all the bottles that don't sell as that. So I use a 1-inch brush, like the Hake brush or whatever. It's like you'd use it for underglaze or glaze or whatever, and that's 1 inch. It's standard. It's not using a tape measure and like hoping that it matches. So I use that. I don't do it on every single bottle now because I've made enough of them that I kind of know. But throw the spout up or the neck up, and I would say keep it very vertical because it makes the most point of contact with that little spout that goes in there. If you do it more open, the spout's gonna tend to crop
out.
up, and then if it's too like this, and there's barely any contact, it might rock a little bit, and it's more tendency to pop out. So,
especially if you use soap.
yeah, I figured out what works, and then you also have issues sometimes. Like customers will come back and they'll have a bottle that the thing keeps popping out, or they can't. It doesn't fit, or if there's something they need a little more space, or something. So I tend to like exchange those, or cycle them out, or offer to give them some help of finding a different spout, or sending them another spout with a little something added to it that'll fit better. So you kind of go through those issues as you get more product out, and I'm more willing to part with those pieces because I'm not as invested in like making it for a living. So I'm trying to tailor like a good customer service because I can afford to. And then that's going to help me longer term of, them coming back to me to get more stuff, or buying something online because they enjoyed that experience with me in person, or things like that. So I think that answered pricing.
How much do you sell your shot glasses for, and how much should you sell them for?
Okay, these are my shot glasses. Thrown off the hump.
And they are basic.
Yeah, I actually started
Like-
selling these at like $6 like 3 years ago. Last year I sold them for $8, and then at a show I do $8 or 3 for $21.
You bumped them up to 9 though.
Yeah, I bumped them up this year to 9.
You should be selling them for 10.
I was getting overwhelmed on. I wanted to mention the online. So the online shot glasses were the best seller online last year. Etsy, I sell on Etsy, and that drives a lot of my traffic for the shot glasses. I sold 670 shot glasses online last year at $8. That's just people stumbling upon, and they're just like wanting to buy something cheap. Like it can get shipped to their door first class for less than $15. Like,
Yeah.
so I shipped a lot of those.
He doesn't even trim those. He cuts them off and just like thumbs them on the bottom.
Yeah,
Like,
so I throw them, cut them off with a string, and then I thumb, stamp.
we don't even know if they don't even sit straight.
Yeah, some of them do.
They're not gonna know because you're doing shots.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so
Ryan, do you use one clay body or do you have multiple?
I have 2 clay bodies. So this is my white clay, and this is my speckled clay. I use white. The white one is Iceman from Kentucky Mudworks, and then the speckled one is Laguna 608.
That's nice. What's your question?
Oh, I was just gonna say, isn't Etsy starting to charge more though?
Yeah, but with the amount of, so here's the thing about Etsy is that if you don't have an online presence, or if it's something like this where Etsy's actually driving the sales to his shot glasses, if he put that on his own website, he wouldn't get the sales that he does, because Etsy is literally like, hey, this is the most sold shot glass.
It's a bestseller,
It's a
and people
bestseller,
review it.
and like, hey, like they're driving people to him. So in that case, like I don't have Etsy, but in that case, it makes so much sense. So like if I wanted to sell my pinch pots, I would probably sell them on Etsy, because I could sell a bunch of it. Like if I got it rolling,
And they stay there the whole year. I try to make enough inventory that I have stock, and I just I have you can look at the listings. If you search ceramic shot glass or shot glass, like I'm one of the first like 6 or 8 people that pop up in the little squares. And you could see the bestseller stuff of like, he sold a lot of these. And then, they can pick. I haven't split between the white clay and the speckled clay because there's just so many color options.
Yeah.
So they go in, and I have quantity set per color. So like this is my medium green speckled. So I would say, I have 4 of these available. And they go in there and they see a chart or a picture of all the different color shot glasses, like in a grid, and they can see the names of the colors. So when they go down and see the drop down of the color they want, they know exactly kind of what they're going to get. And it's handmade. It says, like everything is not exact. So it's going to be similar, close. It's going to hold about this much. It's going to be about this size. Yeah. But I can keep them on the website, on Etsy, the entire year. I don't have to put listings up, take them down when I sell. I can keep them up the whole time and keep that continuity of customers coming any day of the week and buying. Like I think I have like 8 orders to pack when I get home, and most of them are shot glasses. Yeah. I think I got like 20 shot glasses.
And do you charge the customer for shipping?
Yeah.
Yeah, they pay the shipping cost.
But if you ship via USPS and it's less than a pound, you only pay it's like $3 to $5 for first class. And it doesn't really matter the size of the package. I mean, his is 4x4.
Yeah, I ship one of these in a 4x4x4 box.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter the size of the package, but that's a very easy, super cheap shipping option. Even if you ship a mug out and it's less than a pound, you can still do it in like a 6x6x8 box or something like that. So yeah, I was going to talk about what I'm doing as far as sales wise. So I don't sell at shows as much. I'm going to try to start doing that. Like in Washington, shows for me did not work out well because I don't think like any other Washingtonian, I guess. And I'm just not I'm just not like fancy. Okay? I'm like, I don't know. I just don't do well with like the kitschy, like middle American, like white woman that's 45. Like that's not my like people. So, shows have been tough for me, but I started selling online last year, 2 years ago, and just doing like drops online of like 100 mugs. Like once COVID started, I was like, hey, I got 100 mugs. Like put them up, take kind of like mediocrely okay pictures, and I would sell almost all of them. And then the next week, and then the next sale, all the ones that I didn't sell, I'd mark them down, be like, these are for sale, like they're cheaper. And I always sell my seconds online. I don't care. I'm like, hey, these are seconds. This is what's wrong with it. It's 50% off. Like, and those always go first because people love seconds. And more people should sell them. But yeah, so right now I'm selling the shitty cups that I have, which I only make wine glasses, and because that's been traditionally my most sellable item is the wine glass. And I have a thumb indent, and it's a little bit wider than most people's thumb indents, so it fits really nice. They're designed well. They don't tip over in grass. And
those have sold best online and in person when you're selling in person.
It doesn't matter. And so I've been lucky enough to, have an online following that if I say literally the same day, hey, I have a bunch of wine glasses, like I'm putting them up for sale, $18 each. If I sell them online, they're $18 because of the shipping differences, but I'll sell probably 30 or 40 just in that day, and I've been lucky with that. So then I have the fancy cup line, which as far as pricing goes, I was like, nah, these are $100. I don't care. I was like, I want to sell something for $100. I want to be in the $100 mug club. And so
without a handle,
the $100 cup club. And I work really hard on them. I have the expertise to have something that is this much, but I love that. But what I like is that I can sell that for $100 and then I sell another cup for $15. So it's like a completely different cost variation. So it provides everybody an opportunity. I sell, unlike his shot glasses, I've been selling pinch pots, which you hid them. They're just small bowls. They're in there. And I have traditionally sold them I think I started selling them for $5 each. And then I went up to $6. And $6 each or 3 for $15. Then I went up to $8, and I remember like hearing somebody at Leavenworth, because I would sell at the same show every single year, be like, last year those were cheaper, and
Should be like inflation. All right.
cost of living, yeah. And so now I sell them for $10, and I don't have a deal on them, but they're so handy that like people just really like that. And I think that it's really important to have a really big variation of not only price but size in your line, because like when you're at shows, like his shot glasses, he just puts them in a bowl. If you put them in a bowl, if you just like throw them in, that tells your customer these aren't fragile. You know, you can like move these around. Like they're not gonna break if you throw them on the ground accidentally. Like this is something that you can buy and you can have children around it. You know, and that is really important. And so traditionally the pinch pots have been really good, but I also used to make mise en place, and I would do like little tiny mise en place. Didn't matter the size, and I would just do a variation, throw them in a basket, and they were 3 for $10. They sold like hotcakes. They literally like were the simplest.
That's your like bread and butter item that you can count on selling at least half.
Mise en place are just like little tiny. So mise en place is like everything in its place. That's what it means in French, I think. And they're just little tiny bowls, but they're slab built bowls, and so they're very simple. You don't even like clean the slab off. They're all just textured. You just press them into foam, clean them off with a sponge, and throw them in. They don't even sit flat. Okay, like
they're kind of like you put like salt or something. Like
yeah, just like salt and pepper,
or
like
bit of salt
if you have to put oregano in your thing, and you set it all out first. And those, and then garden steaks. And garden steaks are easy. And what I found out with garden steaks is that if you make blanks of garden steaks, Stacey Morgan tested this for me. If you make blanks of garden steaks and then stamp them with the ink, the like black ink, indigo black ink or whatever, like the professional art ink. And if you just stamp them and put them in the oven at 350 for an hour, it sets the ink. They lasted
after they're fully fired.
After they're fully fired, they lasted the whole winter and summer in Alabama. So like they didn't even move. I didn't even have to stamp them with underglaze. Like those are those type of things that like, and I'm like, that's so much cheaper. You can stack them up when you're firing them. You can like stack them like 10 high. Don't stack them 30 high. Like don't mound them. That doesn't work. But like that's a good way, because you could just throw them in the kiln at 350 from cold to hot for an hour and turn it off, and you're good to go. And so that's like those type of things that I found that are cheap. Like I would sell those 5 for $20, and oof. And those are also the type of things that if you had blank ones at a show, you could just stamp them right there for your customer and then give them instructions on how to bake them at home.
Yeah.
And because for fuck's sake, like blueberries, like who has blueberries? Like, or these like catnip or like weird stuff, But yeah, I think that's like it's really important to have like a variation of things. And the small stuff sold the most. Like we both make most of our money on the
small stuff.
On the small stuff.
Yeah, I was looking at how many pots I threw last year. It was a little over 4,500, and 2,000 of those were shot glasses.
Yeah, on my way here. I stopped in Kansas City. One of my friends, she has a horde of children, and they're all grown. But she was like, "Oh man, I need more pinch pots," and I was like, "Well, I have some in my car." She pulled 20 out and bought 20 on the morning I left her house. Like that's the kind of thing that's something easy for people to pick up and take. And yeah, I mean, like cheap shit is good shit.
But I guess here's my question, and maybe it makes me think a little of Tim C. What if you didn't have those super cheap items? What if you had like the next level up?
It depends on where you live.
And then you sell more for less work and not have to work as hard.
Right, but those are like, he makes those in like 10 seconds. Like those
like
are
30 seconds a piece.
No work for him at all. The pinch pots are a little bit more work for me. But I was going to tell you to go look at Clay Buddies and find Tim C's post.
SEE.
SEE.
Yeah.
His post about pricing, because it's really good, and he had a live probably 3 years ago talking about it, and it's really, really good
On Clay Buddies.
on Clay Buddies. Tim C. Yeah.
SEE. Yep.
Can you guys talk just a little bit about commercial glazes versus, do you guys make your own glazes?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's like?
I
What
use a-
specifically? Like, do you want to know if, like, which ones are better, or what? Or
Well, just, do you guys use Amico and Mako?
Oh, yeah.
Or do you guys make your own glazes? Or have you made your own glazes, and how do you feel about?
We have episodes on that for sure.
Oh.
but we're gonna talk about it too.
Yeah. Episode 70 is Let's Talk Glazing. I'll find some other ones,
I would
but
say even the one that you guys did about pricing, you discussed what the cost of.
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
discuss the cost of like commercial glazes versus.
But I have 3 commercial glazes I use. I use Kentucky Mudworks Satin Black, Kentucky Mudworks Inferno Red, which are dry. They sell them as dry 10-pound bags, and then you mix them up and everything yourself. And then I also buy Laguna Glossy White that's like a 50-pound dry mix, and I mix that up. I think I could probably find a glossy white that I could use from Becca or
I have a
somebody
great
else.
glossy white. If anybody needs like a really solid cone 5-6 white,
Yeah.
just shoot me an email and I'll or text or Instagram or whatever, and I'll send you a picture of it.
And then the rest of them I mix myself. So like I said, I'm like cheap. So the cost of the materials and the mixing yourself is like good for me. And I mix them 5 gallons at a time, and I dip all of my pots for glazing. So, the brushing was never efficient for me. It just did not make sense to spend the time brushing glazes on.
Yeah.
And then you pay more for those commercial glazes anyway. So if you're spending time brushing as well as paying a lot for pints, then your expenses go up, and it's just not efficient for me.
Yeah, I would say if you are gonna buy commercial dipping. If that's what you do, as opposed to brushing. But I think that there's a lot of people.
You're making a lot of stuff.
Yeah, if you're making a lot of stuff, there's a lot of people that don't have the space, the time, the money money, not really money, but the space or the time to make their own glazes. And I think that it's absolutely okay to buy your own glazes. I think that that's kind of a stigma that we have in the ceramics world, that it's not okay, and it is. There's a reason they make those glazes, and it's for you to use them. And they've tested them. You should still test them, but they've tested them to make sure they're food safe, and they're not. And on all of my fancy cups, I use Mako underglazes and Mako stroke and coats. And the white on the inside and the black on the inside is all stroke and coats.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, so
Great.
yeah, they're fantastic. And but that's really expensive. And the only reason I'm using the black is because I have like a gallon and I need to get rid of it. But the shitty cups, those are all mystery glazes that I got from Rebecca. There was 10 buckets, and I was like, "Do you got any glazes?" And she's like, "Yeah, you can have all the mystery glazes. I don't know what colors they are." And I was like, "Great." And so I literally glazed an entire set of cups, and I was like, "Well, we don't know what they're gonna be," and put them in the kiln, and they turned out great. And so I think that I don't really want to make my own glazes, but I will. Once they're done. It's just I hate glazing. And I hate making the glazes, and I always say that, and then when I start to do it, I'm like, this isn't that hard.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I can totally understand why people buy commercial glazes. It's just so much easier, and just add that price into your pieces and make it make sense if that's the way you're gonna go.
Yeah.
But
And
whoever,
I do mix my own glazes, but I also pay studio assistants to come
do
measure
it
out the
for him.
glazes, stir them up. But the cost of me paying them hourly as well as the materials is still lower than what I would pay for a commercial glaze.
yeah.
So I don't have the time to do all of that stuff, and I don't want to do all that stuff. So it's worth the money for me to spend to have somebody else do it,
Yeah.
as well as other things in my process.
Wait, you had a question first, and then we'll go to you.
I was wondering what platform you use for selling your stuff.
Oh, I sell my stuff on my website, and I always have. I use Squeebly, which is Square and Weebly. It's Square, but it's Weebly, and so we call it Squeebly. That's not what they call it, but they definitely should. And it's not the best, but it's not the worst. You know, they've improved. Like now you can finally say like, I want to release all of these at the same time, which is really nice. Because previously you'd have to like click them all and be like, go, click them all, go, you know. But like uploading them, you can't you can't do a bulk upload. So if you're uploading 100 of them at a time, it's hard. But yeah, Squeebly, and then he has Weebly as his regular website. But if you're starting to do a website, I always recommend Shopify. That's the standard right now. Yeah, Jeff is like, yes. Yeah, we did it before Shopify was even a thing, and it's just really hard to change, honestly.
I never legitimized the spending $30 a month just to have the site there, because I can't commit to having stuff on there every month. So I always went the Etsy route just because it was the simplest and the cheapest upfront cost, and then they also bring the traffic. So yeah. I really love their interface, the admin interface, the analytics. Obviously, they take their cut because you're using their platform. You know, it's probably 10% or 15%.
And you've done really well.
But yeah, like it works.
Yeah.
And I figured out, you build in the customer reviews in there. Etsy has their own credibility. You can send them to Etsy, and people know that they can check out. They don't have to set up a account on your own personal site and have another account somewhere and all that stuff. So like I went that route.
I hate Etsy. I can't handle it, and like the amount of things that I have. I think now that all my shit's like kind of the same, I could probably do it. But like when I was starting out and I had like crappy pottery, and like everything was different, and you're just like, I don't want to take 45 different pictures and like put them up on this, and it's just so annoying. But like it works really well for you.
Yeah.
Like if I was him, I'd totally stick with Etsy. And also when he does a drop, he doesn't sell out all the time. Like if I do a drop, I pretty much sell out or sell most of it, and that's the differences between our customer base.
Do you feel like your website is losing money, or you're draining money by not having stuff on there that you pay for every month, or you have other because nobody's really going to the website unless they're buying stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, there's my website's like so bare because like when I changed from when I like went from Monroe to here, because like when I was in Monroe I needed the website because parents would go on and I'd be like, I have cats, if you're allergic don't come, like things like that were important. But then when I don't have anything, so it's just like sitting there, totally wasting money. Every time I see on my bank statement that Weebly like takes money out, I'm like, ugh, fine. So, but I'm like, but I'm gonna start. It's like when you're like trying to lose weight and you have those jeans and you're just like, they're one size smaller, but I'm gonna wear them. I'm gonna wear them.
Money's coming out regardless.
That money's like, it's like, okay, but I'm gonna start selling. And so it's just like siphoning my money.
I guess, Ryan, how are people knowing to find you at the arts and crafts shows?
That's my website, I would say, and
Instagram,
and doing a lot of at the shows. I'll with every sale I have a little sheet that I put with it that says where to find me next, which I found from another seller that was doing some other thing like that, and they have a list of their upcoming shows. I print it, I type it up. It's on like a quarter of a page. I type up the date, the name of the show, and the city it's in, and I give that to every customer with the purchase that they make, and it's got like the next 6 or 8 shows on there over the next couple months or whatever. And then at the bottom it says it's got like a $5 off coupon. It's like 5 off 35 or more, and it's like kind of got the dotted line like you can cut it off or bring it back, and it says you can use it online or in person. So it's like the sheet is there, it's incentivizing them to come back and see me, and then they can just put that on their fridge or whatever, or they can use it when they buy something online. So
how well has that return coupon?
I haven't had a ton of returns, but I do have some, and I think it's super inexpensive for me to print it on my toner or laser printer and just have a stack of, it's like advertising, you're putting that in there with the sale. I have the little sheets to talk about how I make my work and my contact info that I put in there with that little sheet. But I mean, I want to encourage them to come back and see me at a show if possible, if they're local. And Yeah, they know where to find me.
Ryan's so cheap that he prints out his business cards and makes his wife cut off the edges.
They're like rounded edges, so she has like a scrapbooking thing to like do that. So
And it's like so old, and I found one on Amazon for like $8. I'm like, just buy a new one.
I think you bought it for me.
I think I might have bought it
Or
for
Rachel
him.
bought it or
yeah, yeah. You had it. You had a question back there.
Oh, yeah, I was just wondering what, how high you go to your firings, on your firings. What's your?
Oh,
We're both mid-range.
yeah. We're both. I fire cone 5, hold 8.
Yeah, I'm like cone. I think I'm cone 5, hold 20.
Yeah,
Kind of like cone 6. Yeah.
yeah. We're like a low cone 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know your fancy cups, your small fancy
Mhm.
cups? I bought one and I don't see a signature except for like a little like curly, like
It's like a smiley face on there, I think.
barely. Is that your signature?
No.
Not your signature, but like your
That's
What's
funny.
your What's your fun?
Chris asked me this yesterday.
I bought one too, and you didn't.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I don't think she wants to return customers. I don't know.
anything on the bottom, and I'm like, okay, I like your work. I love the smoothness of it. You talk about how you.
Do you want to tell them your idea on branding and like?
I just know it's Rebecca's.
You know what? I've really like come into my own in the last couple of years. I've always had like friends that were really into like, you need to like move this along and you need to make everything really nice and fancy and sign your work and do your things. And I've never been like that. I've never been that type of person. I hate signing my work. It's just that extra step that is just annoying to me. And then like sometimes you forget. And then I used to stamp it with the underglaze stamp, or I would stamp all of them with the 5 lines. 5 lines, by the way, is not because of the ridges. It's because my name is Becca and there's 5 letters, and I would go BECCA when I was signing my pieces in college because I didn't like my signature. And so yes, I could totally sign my pieces, but at the end of the day, I don't care. And so, and I'm just doing this for fun, you know? Like, it's not like my life is dependent on, right now, my life isn't dependent on me making a bunch of money of pots, you know? Because I have a full-time job now, and, well, mostly. And, I don't know, the money that I use, like the money that I get when I sell my pots is, I have a goal of becoming a millionaire by the time that I'm 50. I know that it was 45, I changed it. And
I thought it was 40.
no, it was 45.
All right.
It was 45.
All right.
And so with that goal, that means that I want to invest $3,000 a month into index funds for until I'm 50, and then by that time, if the index funds give me 8%, then I should have like $1.5 million. So that's my goal, right? And so that's the only thing I want to do with my pots, and it is just like make enough money to put it into investments. And with the signatures, I mean, like, I don't know. It's just like society has told us we need to sign our pots, and we need to like I was talking to Chris, and he was like, I want to leave a legacy. Well, he said that in a podcast. He's like, I want to leave a legacy and for people to know my pottery, and I have no interest in that. And I think that's a very admirable thing, by the way. And I think it's great. I don't know. I kind of like the idea of somebody getting a pot and being like, this is so cool, and then being like, whose is this? like I can't figure out whose this is, and you know, as far as I know, I'm the only person that does fancy pots the way that I do fancy pots. So they should speak for themselves. But if they don't, that's okay. You know, and I don't sign the shitty cups either. Because that would take time. And
Can you talk about the process? If you
Yeah.
earlier, I missed it.
Yeah, are you okay with that?
Of your fancy pots.
Yeah, the process. Yeah. So
The only thing about my stamp, I did get a stamp this year.
Yeah,
so I got like a
stamps.
metal stamp. I used to sign it with a ballpoint pen that was like dulled down a little bit. I was never like needle tool person, but I would sign it. It's a forwards D and a backwards R. I started doing that
Yeah.
back in high school when I started
Yeah.
doing pots.
Oh, and
so.
a lot of the reason I don't sign it is because I am like forget everything. So like if by the time I get to the pots, they might be dry. That's why some of my shitty pots are flat on the bottom and some of them are curved in, because the ones that are curved in, I got to them in time to like turn them over and bump the bottoms in. But the other ones that are flat, I was like, oh well, like I guess they're flat. But yes, okay. So the fancy cups. So first, I want to tell you how I got to it. So I was like really trying to figure out what I wanted to do when I got to Indianapolis with like pottery, and I wanted to do something different. And the shitty cups actually came after the fancy cups. So by the way, the fancy cups.
No, you were making shitty cups back in the day.
Well, those
You
are
just
just
didn't call
regular
them
cups.
shitty cups.
Yeah, they were just regular cups.
They just evolved to a
Difference
little,
in the,
yeah.
because I have one from before.
Yeah, there's a difference. There's a little bit of a difference. But like, so the fancy cups, I went to this Danny Meisiger workshop and we were doing tea bowls, and I was like, I really like the look of a tea bowl, but I don't want to appropriate that shape. I don't want to appropriate it regardless, but I really don't want to make something without knowing the history behind it. And so when I got home from the Danny Meisiger workshop, I had figured out a shape, and I was like, oh, I really like this. It's like, you know, a hard line up and a hard line in. And I was like, but I don't want people to pick this up and be like, this is a tea bowl, you know, because it's not. And I wanted it to be intentional, extremely intentional. And so I did a bunch of research on like the specifically Asian history within ceramics, and like was looking at kind of that stuff. And when I finally was like, okay, they appropriated everything from like the ceramics world back in the day. They stole everything. They're like, oh, they have a great shape, we're gonna steal that. Their Celadon's great, we're gonna steal that. And it's just been like the history of ceramics, from what I understand, it's just been a lot of stealing from everywhere. And so I like, you know, I wanted to feel more comfortable doing my pieces, and like especially if I'm gonna do something that nice, like making the shape my own and making it something that's not from anything else. Because Danny does a lot of tea bowls, and I was like, I'm not really comfortable with that. So I started thinking about like doing like a little bit wider, and then once I finally figured out that shape, what I do is I rib them off and I trim them down to basically the shape that you see. And then I was burnishing them out, but I don't think that actually matters all that much, because when I bisque them, and then I get them on the wheel, I dump them in water. I just let them sit in water for like 5 minutes. And then I take them out and put them on my Giffen grip, and I sand them down to the smoothest you've ever seen a bisque pot. I sand 120, 400, 800, 1500. So, yeah. Like, I've gotten a bisque pot shiny. And so I found that it's not like, it doesn't super need to be like super shiny anymore. I was using, when I started, I was actually starting to use marble sanding sponges, which they're not squishy, but they are fibrous, and they get your pots super fucking shiny. Like, and they're cheap. They, like, Diamond Core can suck it. So, and they're super cheap, because that's what they use to polish marble. What? Marble sanding sponges. And usually you can put them on a drill, but I like put it on the wheel. I think it would be helpful if I did like drill it and put it on the wheel, but I think the pots would fly. And so I sand those down really, really smooth, and then I paint them after they're dry. And I do Mako underglazes for the matte parts, like, you know, and somebody asked me if I airbrush the gradient. No, I went to fine art school, so I can paint. But learning how to paint on ceramics has been fun. It's hard because it soaks it up so quickly. But there are a few tricks, and I think that's what I'm going to put on like my Patreon. Are we done? Okay. And then once that is done, I do the stroke and coats, the shiny part, Also, quick tip, if you want a stroke and coat not to run, put underglaze under it. So, like those, like you see in the fancy cups, there's like thin lines, and they're like tight, thin lines. I used to do them where I just tape them off and do it over the regular clay, and where it was on the underglaze, it would stay super tight, and then where it would be on the clay, it would bleed out a little bit. So now I do like a really nice, like thin line, and then I'll do underglaze and then the stroke and coats over it, and they're perfectly clean. So that's a tip.
Because the
But-
stroke coat's not sucking into the bare
Right.
clay, so it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it just needs like a tiny little bit of underglaze. And then once those are painted and done, I put them in the kiln, take them back out, and then I sand them again. 120 or 400, 800, and then 1500 on the bottoms. And then on the outside of the main cup, I'll just hand sand it with 800 all the way around. So that's
When you do that second sanding, are you doing it over the stroke and coat part?
no,
Okay.
no.
Just have to be careful.
What
Yeah.
tool are you using for the dots? Because I have so many of those squeegee ones, but I never seem to get, like, some of them are just so crappy.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
that they spit a lot.
Yeah. So, Zeum makes, okay, so I have the stroke and coat, the 2-ounce bottles. Zeum makes a lid, I think it's the black one. The black one fits, and it screws right on top of the stroke and coat bottle, and then I have the little tips. I found the tips on Bisque Imports, but I have like 100 of them. But because I thought that I wouldn't be able to reuse them, but yeah, you can find the tips somewhere. They just like kind of like screw in. I think you could find them on Amazon. I find that the 20 is a good size. It's a little bigger, but it doesn't, like, you know, the small ones are really hard to squeeze and it gets in your hand. But you want to make sure that you bang it down first and then squeeze it into the lid before you start, and then like continue on. Yeah, just to get the air out of it. But yeah, that's what I use. And then I put those back into water and I clean them out and just reuse them. So, yeah.
We put needles in ours to kind of keep them.
Yeah.
But if you were gonna put a needle in it, the 20 gauge is just a hair too thin.
Yeah.
So we use the 18 for a needle.
Yeah, 18 is good too. I think I have 20 and 18.
Yeah.
And I use both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, we're getting close on time. Anybody have any last questions? Do we want to mention the
Oh,
stickers
yeah.
and stuff?
Yeah, you can do that.
So, if anybody, well, for one, there's 4 pots around. There's a few of these, and I think there's some pinch pots around. There's 4 of them out that way. If you find them, keep them.
Yonder.
They're from me and Becca. There's
Yeah.
2 of each of ours. And then, if you listen to the podcast or you want to listen to it before later today, you want to listen to something at lunch or whatever, if you leave us a review, or if you already listened and
Or
wanna
if
leave
you
us a
listen
review,
today, right now.
yeah. Come see me or Becca later. We'll give you a sticker and you'll pick one of these. You can take it.
Yeah, the first 5 people get, or 6 people get a shot glass.
Yeah, because there's already some out there. So look for those.
Yeah.
Come see us. Get
We
one of these.
appreciate the reviews, unless they're
I
bad.
think you can get 1 or 2 of those or whatever
Yeah.
of the stickers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you've left a review before, just leave another one and just say you're somebody else.
And we'll give you some.
Yeah, but yeah, and this actually will give you a sticker that's the best review we've ever gotten. It says, "I really like this podcast and the subjects talked about. However, I question advice given by Becca often, and her manners need a little refined."
I have that on my suitcase.
So you can find me, RD Ceramics, on Instagram, all that good stuff. Becca is...
5 Lines Pottery.
And Wheel Talk Podcast is our Instagram.
Yeah.
You can send us questions there. If you have any questions through email, you can send it to us at Gmail, wheeltalkpodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Yeah. Come see us if you have anything else afterwards.
Your next one starts at 1:30.
And then I'm talking later today at 1 o'clock. I'll talk about...
Is it 1 or 1:30?
1. Yeah, right after lunch. 1 o'clock. And I'll talk about diversifying your income. So I'll talk about the different ways to sell, like online, in person, consignment, wholesale, commissions, pros and cons of each, and then then there's a bunch of references of different podcast episodes listed in there where we talk about each of those things. So if you want ideas about certain things, hey, go listen to an hour and a half talking about this or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you
that's
all.
It.
Thank you guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yo, higgity yo. It's Becca here. Hey, just so you know, thank you for listening. And also, we have. What do we have again? A Patreon. We have a Patreon that you should go, and if you want to donate to, you could donate to it. If you don't, that's cool too. But just Google Wheel Talk Podcast Patreon. Don't do the other one, because there is a Wheel Talk on Patreon, but it's not us. So make sure you get the right one. It's in the show notes. And also, leave us a review because they're fun to read. Okay, bye.